What's that?
Are here for
individual. Did you find out?
Yeah.
Where's he going?
I mean, I'm not trying to take away from it.
that's what's
Little Rock Christian.
Well, what it does, it
and I
shows,
hope Mike is on there.
it shows
No.
started running the thing.
Little Rock Central.
I don't care when you open up, you want to say something like this.
Did you hear where? I don't know. Did you hear where
I'm
PA
not trying to
and
stop
Little Rock Christian are now 6A? We're gonna have to play them next year.
They
They're gonna
run,
pull out
run
two.
it.
They're gonna pull out two non-conference for those two games, and they're moving up to, I guess, the next year.
Oh, yeah?
No.
Or we live with 7A.
To tell us tornado warning. There's
What?
something.
They're
I
private
don't know what it
schools?
is. I got something. on weather
That's
channel.
crazy.
See what they say.
Huh?
So both of them are real good. Should be all right.
That stuff was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Severe thunderstorm warning.
Okay, the May 18th, 2021 board meeting is now called to order. The media has been notified of the meeting. Also, I want to thank Mr. Holland, Mr. Cobb, see Mr. Hobby. Thank y'all for coming tonight, providing security. And again, Coach Holt, thank you. And we also ask, as Mr. Vining said, that we stay, calm tonight, and we would be appreciative of that. And so, Mr. Vining, I'll turn it over to you for the employees of the month.
You can do the start, the pledge allegiance.
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry. We need to do the pledge, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Vining. So if we could stand and do the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance.
We'd like to recognize the employees of the month, starting with the high school. Or where they at? Okay.
Russellville High School Teacher of the Month is Miss Angela Sargent. Miss Sargent wears many hats at RHS. She teaches Spanish and also serves as the Renaissance Coordinator. As the Renaissance Coordinator, she works tirelessly to put together many programs, including the ACE Awards, Student and Teacher of the Month, Cyclone Achiever, and Celebration of Excellence. As a matter of fact, when she is nominated as Teacher of the Month, she always pulls her name. We had to sneak this one in tonight. Yet another hat Angela has added this year is to fill in for one of our counselors while she has been on maternity leave. Angela has done this while also teaching classes and organizing our end-of-the-year programs. Angela is an asset to RHS, and we are proud to recognize her as RHS Teacher of the Month.
Junior high school.
Good evening, I'm Matt Coachman, the principal at the junior high. The RJHS Employee of the Month is Miss Hope Statham. Ms. Statham is one of the assistant principals at the junior high. However, she is much more than an assistant principal. Ms. Statham is a blessing to all of our students and staff and sees that everybody's needs are met. Being an assistant principal at the junior
Dwight.
Dwight is happy to recognize Morgan Vaughn, or Coach Mo, as those who know and love her call her. She is the PE teacher for London and Dwight. This is her first year being our PE teacher, and COVID is a hard year anyway, but for a PE teacher, this has probably been the most difficult year because all of the wonderful PE events that we have sprinkled throughout the year all happened this month. And Coach Mo not only did that at one school, she did it successfully at 2 schools. So she is amazing. Coach Mo, we are so happy to have you, and we love you so much.
London.
The staff at London Elementary selected Taylor Wade as our Employee of the Month. Taylor teaches kindergarten, and I'm actually going to use the letters in your last name to tell everybody why you're our Employee of the Month. So the W in Wade stands for wholeheartedly devoted to her students. A, an amazing leader within her team and throughout our school. The D is devoted to knowledge, not only in herself, but to instilling that in her students. And all of that leads to the E of excelling. And that's because this year, 95% of her students showed growth. So we are so blessed to have Miss Wade as a member of our Tiger family.
Intermediate school.
This year, the intermediate school chose to honor our teams, and all year long, I've brought teams to you. And I'm so very proud of the work that we've done in teams at intermediate. We are proud of the work that we accomplished through the collaboration of teachers as they share ideas together and plan together, and tonight is no exception. We would like to recognize the RIS math team. The math team members behind me are Pam Grimes, Cindy Haley, Debbie Hudson, and Jordan Humphreys. If you want to find your child's math teacher at parent conferences, just look for the longest line in the room. Our math team understands that sometimes parents have questions about assignments, and they communicate with parents not just at conferences, but all through the year. These teachers realized early on that some students needed extra support with understanding the various processes involved in solving math problems. So they worked together to create online tutorials for students well before the days of COVID and virtual learning. These tutorials can be accessed from home and provide extra instruction and modeling of specific math problems to support student learning. Our 5th grade math team takes pride in teaching students the knowledge of fractions and decimals, a life skill that students will need for success, no matter which career path they choose. Congratulations to the RIS math team, our Employees of the Month for May.
Middle school. Megan Ramsey, and I don't think she was unable to attend. Center Valley.
This is Heather Lewis. She teaches our special education class at Center Valley, and I asked her colleagues who selected her as our Employee of the Month to give me some words to describe Miss Lewis. And I didn't get a lot of words. I got the same words over and over again, just about how patient and kind and caring and helpful Miss Lewis is. She is amazing with her students. She sets very high expectations for them, and then she uses her love and her kindness to help them achieve their goals as she works well with her colleagues. So, Heather Lewis, We love you, and we are proud that you are Employee of the Month.
Crawford Elementary.
Good evening. I am so pleased to announce our Crawford Employee of the Month, Miss Pam Rose, and Miss Diane White couldn't be here tonight, but they are both our secretaries in our office, and they do such a wonderful job keeping all of us in line, especially keeping me in line, which I know is a hard job sometimes, but Miss Pam and Miss Diane take care of our kiddos, and they just go above and beyond. But what I love more than them being able to take care of our office is that they are full go and fully into our culture of collaboration, and they love on our babies like all of our teachers and everybody else in the building. And we have a group of kids. It's a part of their daily dismissal routine to come to the office every day and give these ladies a hug before they leave every single day. And I think that speaks volumes to what they mean to us at Crawford. So I am proud to announce Miss Pam Rose and Miss Diane White as our Crawford Employees of the Month.
Secondary Learning Center.
I would like to introduce to you the Secondary Learning Center Faculty Member of the Month, Ms. Tina Weber. Ms. Weber was recognized as our Faculty Member of the Month by our students at SLC. The students were so appreciative of Ms. Weber always smiling, willingness to help, and her ability to turn their day around when it's not going right. Ms. Weber fills so many roles. I would hate to see our building without her, and our students agree. Ms. Weber can also always be seen mentoring our students, helping them on homework, providing quick fixes for small issues they may have, or just being a calming voice when they are nervous. The students and staff are so grateful of Ms. Weber and could not think of any better way to show that than recognizing her as our SLC Faculty Member of the Month. Help me in celebrating Ms. Weber, our SLC Faculty Member of the Month.
The central office employee is Adele Edtram, and she was unable to attend. And Sequoia was, where'd she go? Was Marilyn Oglesby, and they didn't make it. Are you here? Okay, stand up, please. Oh, I thought they told me you didn't make it. I'm sorry.
It is my pleasure tonight to introduce Marilyn Oglesby. Marilyn is a former classroom teacher who's been an aide at Sequoia for 15 years. For many years, she was our ALE aide. In recent years, she's worked as an instructional aide with classrooms at every grade level. Marilyn is the first face many staff see each morning because she arrives each day to help with breakfast. Her warm, friendly demeanor is welcoming to everyone she greets. She always has this smile on her face. She's dedicated, dependable, and goes above and beyond to help teachers and especially the students that she works with. She possesses a wonderful temperament with children. She's always kind and positive, taking notice of their hard work and complimenting them on a job well done. Students in kindergarten through 4th grade are always eager to work with her. Whether she is conducting guided reading groups, giving assessments, supporting a student with an assignment, or covering a class, Marilyn gives 110%. In addition, she is a great unofficial mentor for our novice teachers. Marilyn is one of the hardest working people in our building. Her work ethic and attendance is amazing. I honestly don't know if she's ever called in sick in my 10 years. She is extremely efficient and displays the most positive, energetic attitude about whatever task she is doing. And this is especially impressive. Can I share what you shared this morning?
No.
Okay. We love having Miss Marilyn at Sequoia, and she has a lot of fans who are watching her from home tonight, so.
like to recommend to the board to add addendum items to the agenda. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Where she went?
You're saving the best
Okay.
for last,
Oh,
right?
come on. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
So Oakland Heights would like to recognize our instructional aides for the month of May. These ladies they're the backbone of our school. They are wherever I need them, anytime I need them. I walk in the door some days and a sub is canceled. I call one of them and say, hey, I need you in this classroom. And do you know what they say? I'll be there. They cover duties all day long. If someone's not there and I need a duty covered, I call them. They take care of it. They are in classrooms with students. I believe probably all 6 of these ladies know all 430 students' names in my school because they work with them year after year after year. I find that they are wherever I need them to be, whether it's making popcorn, whether it's running papers for me. Everywhere I need someone, these ladies are here. They constantly ask for training. They want to know about the science of reading so they can teach struggling readers the very best that they can. I don't know what our school would do without these ladies every day in every way, filling in every slot that I need them filled in. So I want to recognize Lisa O'Brien in the back, of course, Tara Young, Terry Tharp, Megan Riggs, Danielle Brown, and Kim Amos somehow didn't get a certificate, but she's just as important as any of these other ladies. Please help me recognize and thank these ladies for their hard work.
And I apologize again. I somehow skipped over that. Why don't we thank all these ladies and guys that do such a great job every day in the classroom. Now I would like to entertain a motion to add addendum items to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to add those items to the agenda.
Okay, Mr. White, is that correct?
Second.
I second.
So second by Ms. Nguyen. We got a motion and second to add the addendum items to the agenda. Any discussion? Did you hear that, Judy? Good deal, thank you. All right, all those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
Now we have the pleasure of Mr. Eddings from Friday Eldridge and Clark to address the board.
All right, good evening, Mr. Vining and members of the board. Before I get started, I'd like to congratulate all the Teachers of the Month who were recognized this evening. Your service does not go unnoticed. The purpose for my being here this evening is to review with the board a task that I was engaged to start back on March the 4th. Back on March the 4th, as you all may recall, this board voted to engage me to conduct an investigation regarding 3 discrete issues. One included whether the Russellville School District was complying with its classified employee policy with respect to assigning classified employees on that salary scale. 2, to look into allegations of sexual misconduct against Russellville School District administrative personnel. And 3, there was a concern related to a student who was performing part-time work in the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, and I was charged to inquire as to whether that student's work assignment in the Chief Financial Officer's office violated the Russellville School District nepotism policy, because as I understand it, that student may have been related to an employee who also worked in that office. And I'll deal with that issue first, although that's the third issue listed in my report, because I believe that's the one that's probably most easily disposed of. In my investigation, I found that there was, in fact, a student who worked in the Chief Financial Officer's office who was performing part-time work, and that student is related to a full-time employee in that office. But as it was described to me during the investigation, that student's work involved pulling files, doing sorting and filing records, and also scanning documents, converting paper files to electronic files. I believe that those paper files was stored in some kind of district storage facility. It was related to me that that student was not assigned in that office to work on a long-term basis. It wasn't a long-term assignment, but that student performed those tasks on what can be reasonably described as an itinerant and as-needed basis. Most importantly, for purposes of my investigation, it was reported to me by the Chief Financial Officer that he, in fact, directed and supervised that student's work and not the relative of that student. And you'll see in my conclusions, I'm not charged with making any conclusions. I think that that's for the board to determine. But those are the facts as I determine them to be. Next, it had come to the board's attention somehow that there was an allegation of sexual harassment lodged with the district's Title IX coordinator, and the rumor was that those allegations were against an employee who was part of the district's administrative team. During the course of my investigation, I was not advised as to the identity of the complainants. I was not advised as to the identity of the respondent of those allegations. I believe in looking at the Russellville School District policy, it specifically states that subject to some exceptions, sexual harassment allegations shall be kept confidential, and that also includes the identity of the complainants and also the respondent. That's subject to certain exceptions. I was able to confirm that there were allegations. I was, as you'll see in my report, the complainants did not wish to file a formal complaint. The Russellville School District sexual harassment policy differentiates between formal and informal complaints and what the administration must do in response to a formal and informal complaint. But I was advised that the complainants did not wish to file a formal complaint, so there were informal complaints filed with the Title IX coordinator, who then, as part of her role, conveyed those allegations to the then Superintendent, Dr. Mark Gocher. Dr. Gocher confirmed for me during the investigation that he received those allegations of those complaints from the Title IX coordinator. He recalled to me during my investigation that the complainants did not wish to either be identified to him or file a formal complaint. So he did not interview those complainants. That's what was conveyed to me. But instead, what Dr. Gocher related to me is that he talked to and admonished the respondent in very strong terms that if the allegations were true and if they had the activity occurred again, that discipline up to and including termination would take place. Dr. Gocher also recalled that he memorialized the conversation that he had with the respondent in a letter regarding the topic, and that he had placed that letter in the respondent's personnel file. Again, neither the complainants nor the identity of the complainants or the respondents were conveyed to me. I don't know who they are, don't want to know who they are, but I was able to confirm that those allegations were made and that there was a response to those allegations. Lastly, I was tasked with investigating whether the district had been following its salary schedule as it relates to classified employees. And throughout the course of that portion of the investigation, I'd like to direct the board's attention to page 2 of my report, and we'll begin there. And I'd like to kind of set the stage. According to the Russellville School District policy as it relates to classified employees, there's a salary range that consists of 25 steps on that salary schedule. And the stated goal of that salary administration program is to reach a point where all employees shall be paid at an equitable level within the prescribed salary step schedule for their classification, with each position having an established salary step, established salary step range, okay? Now, and this is where it gets dicey, and as you'll see where the issues began. Also in that policy, it says, with respect to employees who are newly hired to the Russellville School District, there's a provision that dictates, where newly hired employees shall be placed on the classified employee salary scale. If there's a newly hired employee who has 1 or 2 years experience, that employee will be placed on step 2. I got ahead of myself. It says in most cases, all full-time employees shall be hired at a minimum step range, step 1 for their position range. So in most cases, newly hired employees start out at step 1. But in situations where they have 1 or 2 years of experience in excess of the stated position description, those newly hired employees are placed at a step 2, and it goes all the way up to step 5. 3 to 4 years experience, those employees are placed at a step 3. 5 to 6 years of experience, those employees are placed at a step 4. And then at step 5, it's almost like a catch-all. It says that employees who have 7+ years of experience above the minimum position description shall be placed in step 5. Now, there's also a provision in that policy that says that that provides the superintendent with discretion to recommend a salary placement above step 5 as relates to incoming employees. And that says that salary placements above step 5 based on additional attributes and the determination of the salary amount must be presented by the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel and Instruction to the Russellville Business Manager / Assistant Superintendent and the Superintendent of Schools for review and approval. And in the report on page 3, you'll see an actual excerpt of a certified employee salary placement form where you have the signature of the assistant superintendent, the CFO, and the the superintendent recommending a placement above a step 5. And I think in this case, and I've redacted the identity of the employee, they're recommending a placement of step 10. All right. Now, but there's another policy that has to be reconciled with the one that I just provided you, and that's Russellville School District Salary of Classified Personnel Policy 8.1. And that says that the superintendent has the authority, when recommending an applicant and his or her placement on the district's salary schedule to the board for its approval, to consider the applicant's previous work experiences with similar duties, responsibilities, and skill sets for those jobs and duties and responsibilities the applicant would assume for the district. Now, in reading that policy, that means that the superintendent, not only the board, according to state law, has the sole authority to hire and fire employees, okay, upon recommendation of the superintendent. So the superintendent has to present that employee to the board for consideration for employment, okay? That's part A of that policy. But part B of the policy, in policy 8.1 with respect to classified personnel, the superintendent also has to recommend that employee's placement on the district's salary schedule for the board's consideration and approval, okay? So what I found in my investigation is that we had several instances beginning in, now the records that I looked at, I went back to 2014 forward, okay? We had several instances beginning from what I found in late 2017, 2018, where there were routine recommendations, or routine placement of newly hired employees above a step 5 on the classified salary schedule. Didn't find any placements of newly hired employees above step 5 prior to 2017. But what I found though is that when these employees who were newly hired employees came into the district and were placed above a step 5 on the salary schedule, there was no presentation to the board of that recommendation as to where to place them on the salary schedule. And you'll see on the bottom of page 4 and at the top of page 5, one can make an argument that because that was not done, it led to inequities between the salaries of current Russellville School District employees and newly hired employees of the Russellville School District. And I went through a couple of examples here, and I did my very best, because this is not geared at any individual employees at all. So I did my very best to walk through these examples without identifying employees by name. So that first example, and the board can read, related to the hiring of an employee on December 5th, 2018, who's in reviewing the employment history of that employee, had 5 years of employment history, but when that employee was hired on December 5th, 2018, that employee was placed at a step 20. That salary placement was not brought to the board for approval. Same thing on August 6, 2018. There was an employee who was hired at a step 12, and the following school year, inexplicably, that employee was, while maintaining the same position, was increased to a step 19. And that resulted in a significant increase in pay. Now you'll also see in this next example that this inconsistency with respect to assigning employees on the classified salary scale was not limited only to newly hired employees, but also occurred when you had then current Russellville School District employees who transferred to another position, transferred out of the position that they currently held and transferred into a new position in the school district. For example, we have an employee in 2019 who was at a step 10, who then transferred, who was a bookkeeper at a step 10, who then transferred to a position as a payroll specialist. Upon a transfer to the new position, that employee was assigned to a step 21, and that resulted in about a $9,000 pay raise because of both because of the transfer to the new position and the increase in step. And I found in the investigation, had the employee maintain her then current salary step when transferring to the new position, the employee would have been awarded a pay increase, but that pay increase would have been less than $4,000. And then I also found that that the manner in which the school district pays its school nurses, and this is something that I stumbled upon fairly recently, the manner in which the school district pays its school nurses also lacks uniformity. The school district has a policy 8.1.2.2.1 that instructs that school nurses will receive credit for prior nursing service performed outside the Russellville School District in the same manner in which teachers receive salary credit for working outside of the school district. But in looking at application of that policy as it relates to the group of 11 school nurses employed during the current school year, 7 of those nurses are not receiving credit for non-school nursing experience, while 4 are. So these examples that I've just given to you are not meant to, not representing that those are all of the examples currently existing in the school district. I mean, it's quite frankly impossible to go through every hiring decision that was made since 2014, but I just wanted to, give the board enough of a flavor of what's going on with respect to the assignment of on the salary scale of classified employees, because as I also determined during my investigation that this issue was raised as early as and brought to the administration's attention as early as last April by 2 employees who unsuccessfully sought an audience with the administration to try to get some resolution to the matter, and I believe that that's how it landed in my lap, and what caused the board to retain me to look into it. So with that, if the board has any questions, I'll do my best to entertain those at this time.
Any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Keisha.
Mine's not pertaining necessarily to this, so if you have one pertaining to this, you want to ask? Okay.
I do, pertaining to this subject you just covered, Mr. Eddings. We do have some grievances that are currently filed with the board. I don't know if you're aware of those, but I'm just kind of wondering how we move forward in addressing those, or just proper procedure for resolving these issues, as well as all the inequities in pay across apparently classified, and it doesn't. You didn't look at certified, right?
I did not look at certified, okay. And my hope is that they're not the same issues with respect to certified employees. I glanced at the certified employee policy, and it seems that in that policy there's not as much discretion, so to speak, with respect to assigning certified employees as there is for classified employees. So I wasn't charged with looking at certified employees. But to your question as to how to resolve this thing, I mean, that's one of the things that I often wondered about when I looked at this. And I think that Mr. Vining is also has already started to look at this issue and by meeting with various personnel policy committees in the district to try to hash some of this stuff out.
We do have an item on the agenda, number 10, on the agenda but we didn't have the benefit of your report when I came here, and this is a start tonight, and your report will help us maybe clear up the salary schedule going forward.
We've had a couple people that have filed the grievances that have been very patient. I'm just curious how we move forward and expedite their grievance and settling that.
You know, there's been some discussion as to whether those grievances were timely filed.
Yes, sir.
I was not intimately involved in that. I'll start out with that caveat. But I think, though, you know, whether the grievances were timely filed or not, I think that once this issue has come to the attention of both the administration and the board certainly, you know, whether they hear the grievances or not, the board and the administration certainly has an obligation to do something to resolve the issue. And I believe, again, Mr. Vining has started that process. So, you know, how you resolve it, I mean, the step by step, you know, I think that's something that you know, the administration and the board has to decide. But I mean, I think that, you know, from a legal perspective and certainly from an employee morale perspective, I think that both the administration and the board are duty bound to do something to resolve these issues.
I have given my word to the classified PPC that I was not going to use while I was here, to use that discretion to change anybody's, wherever they fell on the salary schedule, that's where they would be. And also that we were going to do away with the minimum years, you know, and that I think we're doing that tonight. We've learned more that we need to do.
And again, that's above my pay grade. That's a decision that the board and the administration has to work through jointly.
So on the other side, the employees that were hired that weren't presented to the board, that were misplaced in the salary schedule?
You know, I don't want to use the word misplaced.
Okay.
That's not at all what I'm saying. I do believe, though, that and I'm trying to choose my words carefully. I do believe that going forward, that the board needs to absolutely be aware of what they're approving. I mean, that the policy 8.1 requires the board to approve not only the hire, but also approve the placement on the salary schedule. And I don't think that the board can be cognizant of what they're approving if they're not presented with that information. So I think that the board, you know, going forward, and I think the superintendent also has an obligation to have all the information before a decision is made and a decision on approval is made.
I guess that's really what my question is. Since we weren't presented with that information, where does that leave the status of those employees? Since the policy required that to be submitted to the board for approval, and we never saw that info.
You know, those employees, They have employment contracts. At this point, I believe those contracts are enforceable unless the district does something to, change its salary schedule or its personnel policies, because according to state law, the district's salary schedules and its personnel policies are part of an employee's contract. So I think that's something that the district has its work cut out for, try to work through.
Could I just make one comment? I know Mr. Vining shared that he gave his word, and I know he's a man of his word, but these are policies that have to come about. I mean, with our CPPC, they have to come through policy. That may be where we get the action that he wants. I'm somewhat aware of how we have this process. It's through a Johansson-type recommendation back several years ago. And, of course, a lot of it was to allow you to get a highly qualified candidate. In order to put them on a salary schedule, sometimes you had to look at those experiences. If you just put somebody on the step where they're at, you might reel out some pretty good people if you can't make this a salary that's more comparable to what they are getting in order to get a candidate that can perform that responsibility and make us the district that we want to be. Looked like there were some pretty significant advances, and of course I too would like to have had an opportunity to look at some of those and have that particular discussion, and maybe that rationale, is why was this person placed at that high step? And I think 7 of us probably, and others could at least feel good about it or not. But I'm seeing that 3 people pretty much did that process. 3 people determined that action. Looks like they, outside of not sharing with us, they did follow the policy that they had, maybe with the exception of that. Am I wrong in that?
I didn't hear anything that you said that I disagree with.
Okay.
Including trying to attract the most qualified candidate. But even still, the way I read policy 8.1 is there's still an obligation to present that recommendation for placement to the board for its approval. The board has the final approval. But I agree with everything that you said.
I'm going to touch a couple other areas of the investigation. Number 1, on the assistant, the young lady, or young student that was working in central office, did that student have access to sensitive personnel files?
I was advised that that student did not, and in listening to the explanation, I didn't have a real, I don't get to decide. I'm just a lawyer. Y'all are the bosses here. I didn't have a real, given the description of the type of functions and duties that student was assigned to do, I didn't really have a real issue with, that student performing that kind of stuff, in that office. I did, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I did wonder, because it was on, the student was assigned to work on a Friday. And as I understand it, you'll have virtual Fridays, I did wonder, why the student wasn't in school at that time. But as far as, I don't know, I think that the board probably needs, if the board sees an issue with something like that, I think it probably needs a policy, prohibiting something like that from happening. But I didn't, because of the the type of work as it was described to me that the student was performing, I didn't have a real issue with the work that was being done.
And my second question goes to the harassment charge. You said that it was verified was it verified that there was actually something in that personnel file, or do we just?
Well, I don't know the identity of the respondent. Right. All I can relate to you all is what was told to me by Dr. Gocher. I recall Dr. Gocher asking me, after him telling me all the things that he had done, asking me, is there anything that he could have done in addition to that or differently? And I remarked that you just want to make sure that you have, some kind of record of response, what you did in response to what was related to you. And then he told me, well, I memorialized it with the writing and placed it in the employee's personnel file. And then he assured me that there hadn't been any subsequent allegations or subsequent complaints, either by the complainants or against the respondent. And I told him that was probably satisfactory.
There was an FOI request made by Kristen Foster to Mark Gocher back in early March. It wasn't in the report, but can you explain a little bit of what you found out on that?
As I recall, that was not part of, what I was charged to investigate. But as I recall, there was I'm kind of fuzzy on the dates. I think it was March 5th, early part of March. There was an FOI request sent to the district, and included in that request, if I'm recalling correctly, was the district's communications with any records related to the district's engagement of my firm and some other records. And I recall a number of days later, it may have been a week, may have been a little less than a week, that there was an email sent from the superintendent to the board saying, and I'm paraphrasing now because I want to be fair to everyone involved. FYI, we received this FOI request. I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that we received this request from this FOI request, and that it's been handled already. I believe that request may have come in on a Monday or Tuesday, I believe, and I don't have the documents in front of me, so don't blame me if I'm mistaken on the dates. I think that the board was notified on that the following Friday or the following Thursday of the request. But nevertheless, the board was told several days after the request was received and informed that the request had been responded to by the superintendent's office. That's just standing here, getting a pop quiz from a board member. That's what I recall.
According, this report that you gave us, is there anything in there you need to redact before we let it out public? If so, I'm sure it'll be FOI'd at some point, but we might as well, if it's already redacted, there's no use.
If you'll let me go over there and sit down and look at it.
Okay.
And get back with you before I leave this evening.
It'd just be a whole lot simpler and hand it to them than to
Absolutely.
go through that process.
Absolutely. Is there anything else?
Yes, sir. I've still got a few more questions. It wasn't in the report, but I'm wondering if you looked at, I remember seeing a letter from, I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was from the Arkansas Department of Education, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I can't remember I don't want to misphrase it, but it seemed like it was notification of the district not following policies related to bullying. Do you know if that was resolved?
I've seen that, and I don't know how that came to my attention, but that was not something that I looked at in depth.
Okay.
Is that the shaving incident?
I don't know. I remember seeing that.
And I don't know how I came across that, but no, that's not something that I looked at in my investigation.
I don't know if it, yeah, okay. Will you be working with Mr. Vining, continue to work with Mr. Vining on resolving our classified issues, or how are y'all going to handle that, Mr. Vining?
I'll be glad to. In my report here in a minute, we're with the Arkansas Public Resource Center, that we're a member of. They have a group that will come and look at your policy, and I've already contacted them to come and help, in the next few weeks to do a best practices review.
Okay.
But I'll answer your question. I'd be glad to. So if you want to.
Okay. And I asked this question before, and I really don't like asking it, but I feel like I should. But are you aware of anyone that is working at the district that has put the district in a position of liability related to sexual harassment?
That was similar to the question that I framed to Dr. Gocher. And that's all. I mean, what I've reported to the board, that's all that I've got from the administration at the time. So, in addition to what's contained in my report, I don't have any additional information.
Okay. And my last question is, can we openly discuss issues related to the termination of Dr. Gocher?
Tell you.
I mean,
So, you say openly discuss issues related to the termination of Dr. Gocher.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, and we previously have been advised, don't discuss personnel. That's the purpose of executive session, is to discuss personnel matters. Since the termination is a personnel matter, we were advised not to discuss it, and for protection of the district and for protection of the employee.
Right.
And
so,
at this point, has anything changed?
With respect to performance-related issues or things like that, I think that the privacy issues that Dr. Gocher has or any employee would have, I don't think that the board can discuss those openly. Your question, your original question was fairly broad when you say issues related to the termination. How to move forward. Beyond that, the termination of Dr. Gocher, I do think that, if that's couched within your question, I do think that that's something that the board could and perhaps should discuss openly.
I'm not sure I understood that answer.
Not talking about you in particular, Mr. Vine.
There's a lot of questions from people in the community, and we have cautioned on the side of, because you're an attorney, you see people suing employers all the time for various reasons, and some of it's privacy issues, and we have been extremely cautious in not discussing sensitive personnel issues. Some of it has come up here tonight, a lot of it has not, and I'm sure there's going to be some more questions even after this. And I don't want to put the district in a position where we could be liable
Right.
or open ourselves up for any kind of lawsuit, because that is my priority, this
Right.
district.
You know, I think that it's important to, I will say this, what is discussed or what was discussed in executive session should not be discussed outside of executive session. And that may be the answer to your question. And that's probably as clear as I can be.
I think that answers it pretty well.
Right.
That was it.
Mr. Eddings, are you, I know you're a lawyer, but you know very well what should happen in executive sessions. Would you be a good guy to give us training on
I'd be
executive
happy.
session?
I'd be happy to.
Sound like you would be very good.
You all clapping for me or for the
I think
response to
so,
the question?
I'd be glad for him also to help, but I've also got that scheduled in the next few weeks.
Very good.
You can join also.
Well, if that's all the questions, I'll take my seat, but I'll stick around if any board members have any questions after the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to recognize Rob McCormick, who has formally requested to address the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Vining, for giving me this opportunity to address the board on behalf of our community. You have stepped into a very hard position, and you have been welcoming and transparent with me, and I appreciate that. To the board, first of all, a sincere thanks. Thank you for choosing to run and to become school board members. It's not a job many would want. And when you did that, like with any public servant's position, you set yourself up to a higher standard. I, for one, can honestly tell you, I do not want the job that you have. So for all the good decisions, good policies that you've helped to create and enact for our educators and kids who have passed through here and benefited from those policies during your time, for all the good things you did that have gone unnoticed, unthanked, and underappreciated through the years of service on the board, sincerely, I thank you. I remember at the beginning of this school year watching the pandemonium of gearing up to go back to school amid the COVID-19 crisis. And I made a social media post along the lines of, let's all have an extra amount of grace for each other this year, especially for those in education. I want to extend that grace to you right now. It's the same grace I wish you would have extended to Dr. Mark Gocher. Since the board's divided decision to immediately terminate Dr. Gocher's contract in April, many people have reached out to me. Members of the RSD staff, faculty, students, and principals, hundreds and hundreds of parents, your colleagues, and in some cases even your families, have reached out to me. Among their many concerns was predominantly, but not solely, the wrongful termination of Dr. Mark Gocher. There were consistent recurring themes throughout these conversations with people from different schools within the RSD. Phrases like lack of transparency, they don't speak for us, we don't trust them, we can't talk to them, hypocrisy, bullying, There was some rhetoric, but there was some repetition. After speaking with several former board members who have served with you, I see a pattern, and I have a theory about this. Your majority preferred leadership style has been aggressive, as if you were coaches on a basketball court. And given the number of athletic supporters on this board, that makes sense. Aggression and passion are exactly what's needed on the courts and on the fields to win games. But to be the superintendent of an entire school district, that takes a different kind of leadership. With passion, you must have compassion, grace, understanding, empathy, wisdom, patience, humility, and the ability to care for what would be considered the very least of these children and their parents. That is Dr. Mark Gocher. You could have and should have celebrated your contrasting styles in leadership. Differences. Shall I wait? I didn't mean to interrupt. You could have and should have celebrated your contrasting styles in leadership, the way a husband and a wife should celebrate their differing but equally important methods of raising children. The father pushes, the mother pulls. That dynamic, if approached in humility, would have been a winning formula for our school district. Your leadership in humility with Mark Gocher's leadership could have been a winning formula. According to the Commissioner's Office at the Arkansas State Department of Education, the school board should be the superintendent's biggest cheerleader, not their biggest obstacle. Aggression toward passionately solving problems together? Yes. Aggression and hostility toward the superintendent, or principals, or teachers, or janitors in the middle of a worldwide pandemic? No. That's where we needed grace from you. When faculty spoke to me about the school's board's overreaching and micromanaging, I listened intently. In your defense, it actually speaks to good qualities that you have. Overreaching is a way of being proactive about things. Micromanaging comes from a desire to see things done with the utmost of excellence. These are good characteristics if they are within the job parameters of the role you were elected to perform as a public servant. But they are not within the constraints of your defined role as a school board member. You are to serve the school as policymakers, not coach hirers. The superintendent is the leader of the school district. All things are funneled through him to you, not vice versa. And I think that Mr. Vining may be reminding you of that from now on. Somewhere along the way, you forgot an important aspect of your elected job of being on the RSD school board, the job of policing yourselves. The self-mandated need to stay within the limitations of the policies set forth for you by the handbook for the position for which you were elected. And I have an apology to make. I think we all do as a community, both to the board and to Dr. Mark Gocher. We should never have let things get this far. In a pandemic, we were all just trying to keep our heads above water. We should have been keeping a better eye on what was happening within our board. You were all under tremendous strain. We all were. And we were all negligent. And under the added compounded pressures of a worldwide pandemic, a volatile political election year, the madness of the education system being thrust into turmoil, we dropped the ball on holding the board accountable. And now we have regrettably lost a great man as a superintendent in a very publicly humiliating, embarrassing to the district, statewide embarrassment, and most importantly, unnecessary. This was avoidable. I'm guessing in the frustration of the pandemic between options A, B, C, and D, the mask, the teachers in your ear, the quarantines, and the other pressure from parents who both were riled by the news and social media, executive sessions most likely became an echo chamber for venting frustrations. Somewhere along the way, you got lost. And you fell out of touch with the majority of your constituents and voters. Surely you sense that by now. Even if you could have proven that Mark Gocher deserved to be fired beyond a shadow of a doubt, which you have not in any way in the least, in the eyes of the public, the way it was handled was distasteful and disgraceful. There are ways to release a man from his contract honorably, and I wish you had chosen that path of honor and wisdom. And I think you do too now. Last week, after this barrage of conversations, I'll admit it, I was mad. I was mad, and though some of you are my dear friends, I saw your actions as if they were an enemy. But my God tells me to pray for my enemies. And so I did. I asked that He would break your hearts. And then I asked that He would break my heart. And He did. And the anger went away. I'm not mad at you. I am grievously disappointed by the way you insultingly ended Dr. Mark Gocher's impeccable career at the Russell School District. And if you can reverse it, if you can make some aspect of it right without wasting taxpayers' dollars in litigation, then I hope you find within you the humility to do the right thing now. I'm not your enemy. These people are not your enemy. You've been your own worst enemy. The tough truth in this scenario is that you are not the coach. We are the coach. You are the players. And you've been getting out of bounds. You cost us our star player, and now, like a good coach, for the sake of the game, we're going to bench you. You have had a time of not being held accountable, but from now on, we will help you hold yourselves accountable. You will go to board training if you stay on this board. You will give us transparency we require. You will recognize and adhere to the constraints of this elected position, or we will strip it from you. What I'm here to tell you is that you have two choices. You can step down from the servant's position you hold, or for the remainder time of your board, you can choose to step up and behave like the men we believed you were when we elected you. You are held to a higher standard because of this public office that you serve. Lastly, for his patience, his integrity, his mercy, his humility and decency, his excellence of character and uprightness in leadership, in his way of honoring every single person he's ever crossed paths with, for every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears he has poured into the Russell School District since 1993, for his tremendous efforts and still spotless record, I would like to take a moment to honor Dr. Mark Gocher.
Thank you.
You can do better.
Thank you.
Do better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, at this point, it's the superintendent's report, and basically what I want to do is give you an update on what I've been doing the last month and what plans on the next month. Basically, I'm in the process of updating the organizational chart, which will draw clear lines of communication from teachers, staff, principal, superintendent, and then board. Along that lines, I've asked the Arkansas Public School Resource Center. They're coming in a few weeks as soon as we can set a date, and they're basically going to do best practices for both accounting and personnel, and they also are going to do board training. You know, and in June, middle of June, we're also going to have a teachers' 2-day retreat that we will go through and talk about some of the things that maybe you addressed as far as, you know, how teachers feel and what they're doing. And we hope, you know, that will help. You know, this district, and this is my 1-month-old opinion, but this district should be, and in many ways is, a premier district in the state. But what we need to do at this point is, number one, I'm gonna hold everyone accountable in this district the best that I can, whether it be teachers, staff, me, or the board. And we need to go from here, but we need to quit thinking, we need to think about what is important. Every decision that's made by the board or by anybody else, it ought to be what is best for children. And that's going to be my intention going forward from here. I had a teacher tell me not long ago that besides what's going around the town, around the public, she still had to she still got up every morning and went and taught 20 kids, you know, all day long. You have a bunch of wonderful teachers, a wonderful staff. You know, I witnessed the graduation last Saturday, first time I'd seen one here at Russellville, and you have a great group of kids, a lot of honors, a lot of good things going on here in this town and in this school district. And we're going to sort of set our priorities differently at this point and buckle up, and we're going to try to do better, okay? I promise you that. All right, I now have Miss Annie Chanik, and she's going to talk about COVID statistics.
Well, I have good news. Our numbers are way down. And I have a PowerPoint. I just wanted to throw some numbers out there to everyone. So currently, as of today at 3:31, we have 10 quarantined students, 3 quarantined staff, and no positives in our district. So that is, yeah, so I'm hoping to keep it like that, low numbers. So now we have, now that we have several vaccines out, we have paired up with several of our local pharmacies, including Newton's, Rose Drug, and Cobb's Westside Pharmacy, and they have been so helpful with getting our staff and some of our students vaccinated. We have 2 different vaccines that have been available to our staff and our students. The Moderna vaccine, it's a 2-dose series. A lot of our staff receive that. And the pharmacies actually came on campus and provided those during the school hours and some after hours to our staff, and it was all free of charge. With the Pfizer vaccine, that's been available to staff and also to students. Just, I believe last week, they lowered the age to 12, and so we're going back and trying to get some of those students vaccinated. We've had a clinic at every school for our staff, including central office, and then actually here in the Gardner Auditorium. So my next slide, I have some numbers. You'll go back one. Maybe it's not in there. Okay, so we have, I believe it was, there it is, 351 staff members that have been fully vaccinated just at our clinics. That's not including the number of staff members that have gotten appointments at pharmacies, including like Walgreens or other pharmacies locally or at the health department. And between the junior high and the high school, we have vaccinated 273 students on campus. We did have a vaccine clinic at the junior high today. Newton's Pharmacy came and we vaccinated, I believe, 160 students in about 2 hours. That's with one pharmacist administering the vaccine. And we have the middle school scheduled for this Thursday. Students that are 12 years and older are now eligible, and Newton's has a consent form, and the school district has an immunization consent form that we have to have completed by the parent in order for the student to receive the vaccine at school. Our second dose, what we ran into with it being so late in the year, those doses have to be given 3 weeks apart, and so I don't know if it could have worked out any more perfectly. The second dose will fall the week of summer school, that first week at Oakland, and I happen to be there, so we're going to try to get those kids in there for their second dose and get them vaccinated at Oakland. And that will be at 9:30 on June 8th or the 10th. I wanted to get that information out there once again to those parents of those students that received a vaccine today or will at the middle school on Thursday. And once they get their second immunization, then they will get a vaccination card to keep. Okay, do y'all have any questions?
I think, from what I've heard, I think your nurses and staff have done a wonderful job this year.
They have.
Candidly.
We have a really good team of nurses.
I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or any item on the consent agenda want to be pulled? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We normally just approve my consent as read, so that'll be as read.
Okay.
Right. Unless anybody wanted to pull anything off consent. Is everybody good? Okay.
So you ready to go to finance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Justin?
All right, we're going to take a look at period 10, month of April. The next slide, you'll see that our teacher salary fund went in with a difference of $213,687. So you can see my note on what I passed out to you is last year we had our National Board Certification salary, the bonuses. We got those out, the funds, and got them out in April. This year we received the funds in May, so that's the difference right there. We'll pay those out this month. Our next funds are operating fund. We ended with it being up $4 million, almost $5 million. You can see in my notes off to the side, I'm carrying that $1.5 million every month. Carryover from last year. You can see that we got $1 million in CARES money that we have spent. Plus, we're up $2.3 million in property taxes. That's about 4.8 of the 4.9. Debt service fund, we're in with the difference of $761,247. Once again, that's just from prior year refundings that have kind of pushed payments off until this year. Our legal balance, we ended up $4,412,051. Building fund, we ended up $579,650. Once again, based on projects, what we have going on. Capital outlay fund, we ended with a difference of $74,770. I always put a note out to the side. As you can see, of the almost 1.1 million, we have 416 that we're waiting to expend. They've been encumbered. Our federal grants fund, you see we have a difference of being up 421,000. Once again, that's just timing of reimbursements when we get paid from the state and from the federal government. Our last funds, we'll end with the best news. Our federal food service fund, we ended up with a difference of being up 14,537. I didn't get this on the note. I just got this from Daniel earlier. But in the month of April, we went from having last month reporting a loss of 115. Now we are actually up in the black of 128. So all that's kind of catching up from expenses, preparing for this, remainder of the semester. And so now we're here in the black, and month of May should look even better. So we'll have a good report, I think, next month also. But that is period 10.
Approve that.
Can I entertain a motion to approve the financial report as given?
Motion to approve period 10 financial report as reported by Mr. Robertson.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Keister.
Yes,
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve the financial report by Mr. Golden, second by Mr. Keister. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, we are unanimous.
The next item on it is to rescind draft policy 8.1.1.R of classified. And basically, this is something that starts addressing what Mr. Eddings has brought us tonight. And basically what it does, it takes away the superintendent's discretion on placing them somewhere other than their years of experience. And so basically what happens is if they have 5 years when they come here, they get 5 years. If they got 10, they get 10. So there's not going to be a maximum amount of years that they can bring in. So, have any questions or make a motion?
Okay, first of all, we need to entertain a motion to approve that draft policy, 8.1.1R. If I can please entertain a motion to approve that.
I make a motion that we approve that policy.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wynn. Can I entertain a second for that?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Carter, thank you. Now we're open for discussion.
So this, I mean, this policy doesn't resolve the issues that are in front of us, nor the grievances that have been filed. Is that correct? This is just moving forward as far as placement.
It doesn't
of
necessarily,
employees. This is just moving forward of placing employees and new hires and transfers, right?
it does not address the grievance in that it does not do anything from past. The policy from now goes from now forward.
Okay, so this really doesn't address any of the issues that we've heard about tonight.
Correct. It addresses anything going forward.
Okay.
Does this policy, and does it require any action on behalf of the classified?
They've already done that.
They've already approved
Yes, sir.
this?
I went to them. They've already approved to rescind this. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So when I first got here, when I was here, that's the first place I went is to them, and they did this and submitted it to the board.
So does that, and maybe this is for Mr. Eddings, but that still does not alleviate that having been presented to the board on the salary step where they're being placed? Or does the board still have to see that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
As far as the placement of that employee in the step position, we heard earlier that should have been presented to the board.
Well, it'd be my observation that once you hired them at that step, then they're on that step. You can change the personnel, you can change the salary schedule that reflects that in the future, but you probably are still obligated to pay whatever you did, because the policy was of where to place them was under superintendent's discretion. Okay? He may not have completed that by telling you how much that was, right. But there was no law broken. It may have been a policy broken. Once you have a contract with them, you are obligated to pay that.
Does this nullify the part where 3 people would evaluate comparable experience and you could add extra steps?
No, okay, in other words, go back to some current employee?
No, I'm just saying if if we have a candidate for a unique position that really may be a one-of-a-kind position, hard to get position. I mean, they may have years of experience, but they may have a skill set that might qualify them for some additional consideration in the past.
In my opinion, that's what this current policy did, and what needs to happen if you have an employee like that you need to pay more money for in order to get them, then you need to go to the classified PPC and get the steps, the policy changed, and then hire them. You shouldn't, in my opinion, there shouldn't be a way to go hire them without it being in the classified policy.
I just don't want us to put ourselves in a position where we have mediocrity. I mean, I want us to be able to get good people in the respective positions that can do well in that position, whatever manner. I mean, if it takes a policy change, or I'm not even opposed to, well, that's what you're not wanting to do, but even a superintendent say, look, we've got this comparison to other school districts. This is a fair salary for this person compared to those districts. Come to the board. My concern here is when you just put somebody at a step and you don't have a way to address those unique situations, that we don't get good people. So.
Well, I completely agree with that. The only issue is we have a lot of good people that work here already. I mean, a lot of good people. And the situation that's been created is we have inequities in pay because that has been done. And we haven't gone back to the good employees that we do have and adjusted them. That's why we got the grievances.
But again, you can address that because, you know, you change the policy and then you take care of that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Barrett. The floor is Mr. Barrett's.
That was it.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Any additional discussion? No discussion? Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Nguyen, correct? Second by Mr. Carter. Thank you. And we've had discussion. So all those in favor for the motion? Okay. Chair is 4, so it's unanimous.
Building grounds, do you have a report? Okay. Is there any other? If not, we'll go to personnel, and Jeff Holt's going to present that for you first. To you.
Before you, you have all of the people that we are hiring, both classified and certified. Just to be on the record, they were done right by the book. So I've laid it out in a spreadsheet for you. If you have any questions about any individual hire, I'd be happy to answer that. We only have one new hiring, and the question was, where do the funds come from? And it is coming from ESSER funds, and we had that approved by the Arkansas Department of Education. So any questions that I could entertain?
I've got some questions, but I think there's going to need to be an executive session related to some of the classified resignations and employment.
Okay.
So you want to go into executive session before you vote? Before you vote?
Yes,
Okay.
I've got some questions about a few of these positions.
Can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Barrett, entertain a motion to enter executive session. Can I entertain a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carter. No discussion on executive session, so all those in favor? Okay, we're unanimous, and so at this time, we'll adjourn to executive session at 8:32. Ms. Pennington, thank you.